Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us for the kickoff of our second annual Lurie MedTech Week. Thank you. It's super exciting. Lurie MedTech Week started last year uh, as an opportunity as the CTIP program moved to Lurie Children's in 2023, and we held our first symposium here. We saw there was this incredible opportunity in collaboration with all of our wonderful programs that you see here on the stage, represented here on the stage, and the investigators and the community here who really want to take a leadership role in MedTech for children. And so last year we planned our first one, which was very exciting. And now we're continuing to grow that. So we're kicking off MedTech Week this year with our first panel, which is entitled Pediatric Device Research Demystified, Infrastructure, Partnerships, and Pathways to Success. You know, in our experience as an FDA medical device accelerator, we spend a lot of time working with early stage companies and with investigators and innovators who have faced a lot of challenges, even thinking about how to go on this journey, how to think about identifying the problem, how to find those early stakeholders, and how to find those key partners like Lurie Children's who can then help them go on that journey, because it's a complicated journey, right? Most MedTech founders are first-time founders, right? It's very much driven by passion. It's usually a clinician or a parent or a person personally affected by it. And so while they might have brilliant ideas and a ton of passion and zeal to solve a problem, they might often lack the resources, depth of staff, and knowledge that some of our typical industry partners might bring. And so often they require a little bit more support in navigating those challenges. And so we have an incredible panel here for you today that includes representatives from our Office of Community and Clinical Trials, our Innovate to Impact program, and our MDCTU program to talk a little bit about how these kinds of partnerships can and do happen at Lurie Children's. And so we'll have a conversation. They're going to talk each a little bit about their programs. We're then going to have a conversation about some common questions that often come up from innovators. And then we'll have a case study from, I think, one particularly successful partnership that we've been able to host here at Lurie Children's. And then we'll open it up to questions from the audience, both online and in the room. So with that, I'll go ahead and get us started. Katie, do you want to go first and tell us a little bit about your program?
Yeah, I'm assuming you mean me, Katie, right? This Katie. Yeah. Awesome. Well, nice to see everybody in the room and hello to everyone online. I'm Katie Maskell. I am the industry engagement lead here at Lurie Children's. And so my role is all about supporting research and innovation across the Medical Center and Research Institute. And I do so by aiming to be a good partner for external collaborators that want to work with us here at Lurie. So I can tell you a little bit very briefly about just our team and the way that we work together. We're a relatively small group within Lurie. There are about 5 of us total. Across the board for innovation, we work across therapeutics, digital health, medical devices. Today, I'll, of course, have my MedTech hat on as we kick off MedTech Week, but we do support initiatives across each of those areas. And I like to sort of think of 3 buckets of ways that we support innovation at Lurie. So the first is we work on something together. We can co-develop something, we can collaborate together with an external partner and then subject matter experts within Lurie to really work on something meaningful that can improve the lives of patients and families. And I think, Juan already touched on it, but there's lots of different challenges in medical device development and in MedTech for early stage innovators in particular. And we love being partners and sort of having those, we're in the trenches together. The second bucket of ways that we can work together that's sort of here in the middle is that you bring your solutions to us. So maybe you need some feedback about a device that you're developing, or maybe you need a research study to say, hey, I want to put this device in the hands of the people who are going to use it and study something with these fine folks who are here to be able to advance your technologies. So we work on something together. Second path is you bring your solution to us and we help you test it. And then the third is that we have a good part of our innovation team supports inventions and innovations that come out of Lurie children. So from our researchers and clinicians who may invent a device or some type of app or some type of new therapy, that we are able to partner and license out technologies to be able to bring those innovations from the bench to the bedside. And we do that at sort of all different stages. But I think just for like level setting of this conversation we're having today, partnership for us is broad. The role in the broad partnerships is to help navigate that, right? That it's not straightforward. And so the hat that I2I will typically wear is either, in the matchmaking of who is that clinical expert or who is that person that you need to be talking to, or the internal coordination amongst the various efforts that are needed. So that's, I would say, main thing that we want to convey up top. Second thing is sort of how do you get involved with us? How can we get in touch? We wanted to lead with just sharing we have a shared inbox. You can reach out. Often a question that we get from external MedTech partners is like, when is the right time to connect? I would say early. Early is a great time to connect, potentially before you have the specific idea of a project that you may want to do, because partnerships and relationship building, it takes time. And so for us, our doors are open and we're here to just make the initial connection, be a sounding board for thinking, hey, if you're planning a year or two down the line, what are considerations you may want to have in pediatrics specifically now to set you up for when you're ready to do a study in a year and a half or two. So early is the answer to that. And I think the second thing that I just want to flag is today we're talking primarily about studying your techs and doing research, but we do have available online the inventions and innovation portfolio that comes out of Lurie. So you can scan that and see the different things that researchers and folks are working on here. And then lastly, sort of why would you want to partner with us here at Lurie and I2I? I'm hoping that through the conversation and the case studies, you can see the different ways in which we aim to be a good support. So with that, I'll hand it to the other Katie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Sparks. I'm the Director of Clinical Research Services in the Office of Clinical and Community Trials. I like to start with this slide here. I know we're focusing on devices this week, but we execute all types of research throughout our medical center and the Research Institute. We have pillars designed with a scientific director and an administrative lead that host all of this work and support it. So basic and scientific clinical space, population health and outcomes, our quantitative sciences with Juan, and then our research development office helping elevate the education to our faculty and staff throughout all of our pillars. But I'm here today really representing that medical center execution space with my office with Ashley Hombrecker and Dr. Muller. So our office really got reimagined 4 years ago. There were items that were not originally supported through our research business office, and that is per patient reimbursement styling clinical research. These were outsourced to the teams, all decentralized within their own programs, all growing organically themselves, or having maybe some stumbling blocks. And so Ashley and Bill really came in with a reimaginement of our office, and I get to lead the clinical research services service line, which is really, I'm honored and humbled to do. But some of those things that we wanted to take off the faculty and research professionals and their teams was the finance and the research operations and conduct. So things of Medicaid coverage analysis, budget negotiations with our sponsors and other proposal areas, as well as the research billing and compliant practices in our software systems. And so then where were the teams, decentralized, and how could we better improve efficiencies, workflows, equity, compliant practices. And that's where we came up with clinical research units, as the folks executing these trials, whether they're investigator initiated, registries, databases, all the way to gene and cellular therapies. And this has really opened up where we could also do devices. So we have had wearables all the way to surgical interventions. And so that's where I really like to pass it over to Jamie. So we have all the different stylings that we would do in the hospital. So we have outpatient, inpatient. Our HEMONC group is so large, they're independent. And we also focus on strategic initiatives coming out of the Research Institute and how we would execute that work in the medical center. And then the device space, of course, we have implantables with our surgery team. And so Jamie, my colleague, is here to describe the surgical department.
Hi, everyone. I am happy to join y'all today. As we're drilling down into what our offerings are at Lurie Children's, I'm going to spotlight from the clinical research services across our institution to hopefully surgery. There we go. All right. So I represent our surgical and anesthesia research here at Lurie Children's. My background is in I did actually robotic assisted gait rehabilitation post-stroke for my PhD. So I've been working with companies doing research now for about 20 years. And now that translated really well into pediatric surgical research. And so here is a grouping of our team. We're headed by our Justin Ryder, who's our vice chair of research. And then I help support all of our surgeons in identifying resources for our research. And so we have a broad group of surgeons who are very interested in partnering with industry sponsors and other companies looking to bring their devices to market. I just am spotlighting here our teams who we have over 40 research staff who are here to help support our surgeons develop research and conduct all of our clinical research. This slide here is just a broad overview of what sort of projects, studies, and partnerships that we support. It's a lot of information just because I just wanted to showcase that we do a whole lot here in the Department of Surgery. We've got multi-center trials, broad consortiums across many different hospitals in North America and overseas. We have many industry sponsors, device and drug trials at all different phases of clinical research and surgery. We have many surgeons who are interested in community partnerships, outcomes, and big data. And then finally, they have a lot of experience in AI, machine learning, and developing of advanced imaging. So with that, we would be nowhere without the support of OCCT and the rest of the Lurie Children's research infrastructure. So we draw on lots of research and expertise across the institution. Our staff are pros at all sorts of regulatory and IRB submissions, standardized operating procedures, and engaging with our patient families. I want to spotlight our children's surgical tissue repository that's in development, where we are trying to put together and working on a biorepository multi-omic group where we have a lot of opportunity to partner with external people who are looking to use these tissues to support their work. I'm going to quickly go over what we have as well. We do quite a bit of work in research administration, regulatory compliance, as I mentioned. And then we have, in partnership with Juan and his team, a robust data science support with statisticians in-house that work with our surgeons at all times. We also have a robust data ecosystem and, as I said, AI and machine learning expertise. And then finally, I think this is my last slide, where I want to spotlight our wonderful surgeons who are unrivaled in their surgical expertise. I looked at our numbers. We have 14,000 surgical visits per month here at the hospital, 90 plus surgeons. And then finally, we have expertise in 10 different surgical areas. Here are a spotlight of our leadership areas. I want to spotlight our fetal and neonatal studies. We are doing work with gene therapies for a number of different rare disease systems. As I mentioned here, this showcases one of our surgeons doing advanced imaging, looking at fluorescence in tumors and helping with remove tumors for children. And then wearable device integration. We have multiple surgeons looking at research in that area. So just to highlight some of the things as we drill down, I did not mention Remy, but I also want to pass that on to Greg.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Zapotoc, and I'm a research professor here at Lurie Children's, and I also have the privilege of being a part of the CTIP team, and I have been for the past 4 years leading our medical device clinical trials unit. So first of all, about the CTIP, or the Consortium for Technology and Innovation in Pediatrics. This program started because the FDA and the Congress recognized that there is a great need and a great gap in how pediatric technologies are being developed, and they need a lot of help. And this is how we started our adventure at Children's Los Angeles and the University of Southern California in 2011. And we, 2 years later, secured the FDA grant that we've been renewing ever since to accelerate pediatric medical device technologies. And just like one mentioned earlier, in 2023, our team moved to Lurie Children's, and now we are part of this wonderful innovation ecosystem, and we are very happy that we have these collaborations to, again, jointly advance pediatric medical devices and accelerate children's access to care. With that in mind, we support technologies at any and all stages of development. So whether you have a concept on a napkin, or whether you have already approved device for adult indication, but you think that children will benefit from it, we are there to support you. And our support is very comprehensive. So it could be something as simple as validation of unmet medical need, but also prototyping, IP conversations. In particular, I'm focused on clinical research and regulatory. I also have a regulatory degree. But beyond that, we help with reimbursement. We have help with business. So all of the aspects of the continuum, all of the facets of innovation, we are very well equipped to support, thanks to our extremely diverse team. And with that, over the years, we've screened over 500 projects with the technologies that can help children, and accepted, over 100 to join our portfolio and support it ever since. And the companies, the projects that we work with are extremely successful. So, just to give you a few numbers, since joining our portfolio, the companies that we've been supporting raised around $400 million in dilutive funding and secured 47 grants from the federal government. We also facilitate a lot of interactions with the FDA, so we have metrics around that. So accelerated programs like STEP or Breakthrough are on the list of many things that we support, and the FDA has always been very receptive when we work with innovators on these applications. And last but not least, we also help commercialize now about 34 technologies, and some of them have been also licensed and acquired. And so with that, I also wanted to introduce our medical device clinical trials unit. So this is not your traditional, unit in a physical, as a physical space. It is a very comprehensive and holistic support program that deals with all aspects of clinical trial development. So, when we start interacting with innovators, we start as early as possible, and we understand that developing or running clinical trials is extremely expensive. So we partner for grant writing, like SBIR or STTR grants, the small business grants. So, we also understand that there needs to be alignment with the FDA, so we facilitate these interactions. We help develop regulatory strategy for the technologies in our portfolio. And of course, we try to facilitate the more traditional things that you would expect clinical trials unit to facilitate, like IRB approval or clinical trial design and execution. So all of these are within our portfolio of services that we offer. I think at the core of our success and the mission is really just the centralized coordination. And when you interact with the hospitals, you might feel lost, and we are here here on the inside to work with our wonderful colleagues from all of the departments to facilitate any and all conversations that you might need in order to start a study. And it could be as early as conversations about IP and what will be the contributions, or the form of collaborations, but also how then to execute that clinical trial agreement, and any and all of the aspects of the technologies, including information security, which is something that is extremely important for devices that might be connecting to our network or interacting with other technologies in the hospital. And we are not, keeping any of the work that we do secret. So we also work on academic publications, and this is an excerpt from one of them. But all of the models that we think of how the children's hospital infrastructure could benefit from are disseminate as quickly as we can. And this is really just one of the examples of how we think of that innovation, and how there could be 3 parallel tracks of how we can accelerate starting clinical studies. So obviously the regulatory track where you interact with IRB, but also budgeting and contracting. So we are hoping to alleviate a lot of the startup burdens by trying to work on these in parallel. And I think the now 4th pillar should be that information security, because that's something that might take even longer than IRB approval. But that said, we are here to support and collaborate, and these conversations that we have, just like you can see now, we have on weekly basis when we have a project coming in, and we work out together how best to position it for success. So please do not hesitate to reach us, and we will be happy to facilitate your clinical studies here at Lurie Children's. Thank you.
Wonderful, Greg. Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you to all 4 of you for your presentations and sharing your information. Appreciate it. We're going to stop our share for a little bit, and we're going to go to so we wanted to set us up for a little bit for you to hear about these different pieces, the different components. I'd like to sort of, if I would summarize, I'd say, we have mechanisms to support partnership development with Katie's team, for clinical trial planning and execution with Jamie and Katie Sparks' team, and then through MDCTU, kind of the wraparound strategic support, right? FDA engagement, funding strategy, all of those pieces. And so together, we've been working on creating kind of this fluid ecosystem that is helping us advance that. But I'm sure, and yet there are still lots of challenges, right? And I thought, maybe Katie, we could start with you. You mentioned that there's no such thing as too early for someone to reach out. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about, well, what does that actually mean? And what does that initial outreach look like? And what do those interactions look like sort of when they're still talking with your team, with I2I? And then maybe I'll then set up Jamie and Katie Sparks say, and then when a company says, I think we're ready for a clinical trial, how is that different from or what happens in addition to what Katie Maskell's team is doing?
Yeah. Great question. So, yes, never too early, but it may be, I would add a little asterisk of it may be too early for work to happen together. So I think when I say engage early, engage often, and I heard Greg, you saying a similar thing, I think that, there are lots of different ways that we meet companies, and there's lots of different ways that companies come to Lurie. And I think that the early point of what I'd emphasize is, I think to just understand like the basic who, what, wheres of like what is the problem you're trying to solve? Who are you as a company, and what stage are you at? What types of support you may need. It's really I would say there's probably like a dating analogy in here somewhere of like a get to know you of, I think when we start conversations before it's like, we got our funding and we're ready to start the clinical trial, I think it just helps us have a little bit of warm-up time. But we love those too. If you come and you're ready, we also love that. But I think like initial conversations to your question, Mon, of like the intake is really just trying to understand what are your needs as a company or as a partner, where may that match with our research infrastructure as well as our clinical expertise, and so that we can do any sort of like internal planning in advance. But I think the handoff of when does it go from we meet you, we're getting to know you, to you're ready to do a study is, I think, the timeline can vary, but I think that there's typically a couple pieces. One is sort of the funding component of, are we seeking funding together? And we're going to start with writing a grant, or we're going to be, sort of giving input with early stage companies of how are you thinking about like fundraising structure and what it might cost to do a study of a certain size or of, like a certain stage. So I think there's the preliminary work, but that typically where we're trying to go internally is that we start the conversations internally as well. So there can be a smooth handoff. And, I think when we go through maybe some case study examples and talk about things that may help bring some specifics, but I think generally with companies, what we want to do is lower the barrier, as you said, Greg, like it can be kind of a black box trying to partner with a hospital and partner with a research institute. So I would say the earlier the better. But I don't know, Katie, what are your thoughts?
That's really well said. And I would also continue on when we have those early discussions as us as a group. For pediatrics is where logistically it's best to take place. Peds is very different from adult care in terms of where things happen in the medical center, in surgery spaces, but also like in your critical care spaces or in your outpatient settings, what type of lines we put in kids, what type of interventions we do and those time points vary differently. So we have those conversations like where we could execute this type of work with you and your company in the best spaces and the patient population. Is it a match? I think has been really great. I think then a little bit the opposite, when companies do come to us directly, we're able to reach out to you all and say, hey, this seems like a mid or early that we could have a partnership with in a different styling, and we need to have that group conversation earlier. Do we have also faculty members that are interested in this space? And Jamie and I in our bridges like know more about what styling and interests our faculty members are really interested in doing in their research portfolios, and we can help match in that space. Also, not here today is our health at home. So not inside the medical center. Can we do this in the home with our patients and families? Can we make the barriers for our kiddos easier so that they can do more at home versus some of the things we have to do in the medical center? So that's been really great as well. So I think we help try and figure out those logistics together earlier. Yeah.
As thinking of, partnerships with health at home and thinking about one of the benefits of like engaging early and what does it look like, of thinking about like longer term studies that you may be leading up to, I think there's opportunity to start collaborating before the study begins. Meaning maybe we want to go and run a couple focus groups to get inputs from the caregivers at home. And so we want to get those inputs together so that way we can shape a better study. So I think that there are different.
Yeah, related, I would like to also add that like our surgeons love to get feedback. So we can do focus groups with the surgeons to help refine and improve any product that you might be interested in. If you're not ready for that clinical trial, great. We are here to help provide any sort of feedback, any sort of development improvement that might be worth that you might be interested in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Katie Sparks, I'm going to start just using last names. Hey, Sparks, which is a solid last name. You said something that could be a whole hour-long talk, but maybe I'll ask you to expand on it a little bit, and then I'm sure others, Greg probably has some thoughts on this too. You said doing research with children is not the same as doing research in adults. And then, sure, size and volume is different, but obviously it's more than that, right? There's regulatory concerns, there's operational concerns. Can you talk a little bit more, especially in your role, through the lens of planning these clinical trials, how those things are different? Like, what might a company not know or not think about when they say, ooh, we've done an adult study, we're now thinking about doing a pediatric study, and how those things are different?
Yeah, man, so many avenues we could go down. Access and the family dynamic is super involved in a pediatric setting. How is the setup to get your child downtown physically, right? We're a downtown too. We service all of Chicagoland. So travel is an item. We have school, right? We're in school. We don't want to miss school as much as possible. So how do we do things off hours? Because that's different. And also off business hours, parents and grandparents and systems getting you to your appointments. And then really in terms, I was saying in the medical center, we had an example. There is only one type of procedure in terms of where we put a specific line in that needed a data set from that type of line. It would be really common in adults. We're going to put that type of line into an adult very easily, and with less anesthesia, but we're going to put full anesthesia for our kiddos because they have to, and they're only going to have that line pressure at a certain time point and in a certain procedure. So that's really the dynamics that we go through and what we think about a lot. We've talked about even access at different times, how little we want to poke and prod our little ones.
Yeah, no, and I think you brought up so many different pieces, and I think it's the care model, the way that we deliver care to adults is fundamentally different than the way we deliver care to children, and our research approaches follow those. And I think if folks are used to, oh, in the adult world, this is an outpatient procedure under like local, with local anesthesia, and it's like, oh no, that happens in the hospital, and we have 24-hour observation. I think there's oftentimes that's a learning curve for people.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, the regulatory aspect to that is we are a vulnerable population, PEDS is. So our IRBs, both even central IRBs and our local IRB, are going to evaluate every study, an IND or IDE with a fine-tooth comb and lens of what that means for that patient and family, because it is a vulnerable population through, the HHRP. So very important aspect that we're going to have more regulatory and compliance needs for pediatrics as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I wonder if, and this is for any of you, you might speak to, what is in industry terms, like what's a minimum viable product that somebody might come to you from the perspective of, okay, I want to do a study. Right. And depending on the sophistication, experience, and makeup of the team at that startup or that smaller company, that might be I think my product works better than product B, and that's as far as they've gotten. If they might have the bones of a protocol, they might have asked ChatGPT to think about it. They may have looked up a study on PubMed and said, well, my thing is kind of like this thing. Like, what is a good starting point? To come to, I'll open it up to kind of to any of you. I know, Jamie, we've had a couple collaborations in surgery, so maybe you can speak first a little bit about this, but like, what is, we say often and early, and we're here to help, but if there's it would be so helpful if Boy Scout style, you came prepared, like what's that like prepared to make your job easier to help them?
Honestly, in my experience, having reasonable expectation of timelines, because I understand that a lot of companies come to us thinking, oh, I'm an agile environment. I want to have weekly sprints and things like that to talk about whatever that you're developing. And I'm just like, hold on. We need to talk timelines and talk about milestones that have to be accomplished before we get moving with whatever weekly sprint you're wanting to accomplish. And so it's been one role that I provide is to help translate those expectations from what a business is trying to accomplish versus what surgeons and the hospital system can reasonably deliver. And within the regulatory frameworks of getting these products to market, things take time. And so I would appreciate some partnership in evaluating your expectations of what we can deliver and on what timeline.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Having those right there, right? You might be a 10-person startup with your phase 2 SBIR, but we're an 8,000 employee, $1.1 billion enterprise who has to take care of 200,000 children a year. And so those timelines may not always align.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think of what in like a dream scenario, right? Of like what do you have, what is ready. I think it kind of comes back to when I started with the 3 buckets of what type of relationship are you seeking to have? Because if you have, I think you, Greg, you were talking about like you have a napkin sketch idea, right? If you're seeking someone to co-develop a technology with that meets a significant unmet need for a patient population that we have faculty and researchers that are passionate about, is that could be a slam dunk. Or if you have a solution that is like you're beyond the prototype, napkin not scratches sketches sketch phase, I think, and you're more study ready, like I think it kind of comes back to like the intent of like what does value in a partnership look like for you as either an innovator or a company, and then I think it sort of cascades from there, because I think some opportunities, if you're looking for sort of the like boots on the ground, we're building it together, it's okay if it's earlier. But if you're saying we're bringing you a napkin sketch idea and we want to do a study, it's like, well, that I think it's a great point, Jamie, of like the expectations of timeline of like what does it take to get from where you are to where you maybe want to go.
No, I appreciate that. Jamie, you said something, but actually you and Sparks both said something, which is like the regulatory component. And I think sometimes, in this space of med device, we use the word regulatory, but there's sort of kind of 2 complementary but different regulatory pieces. There's like the IRB and study conduct, and that is regulatory. And then there's what is our FDA strategy for evidence generation and submission. I wonder, Greg, and this might set you up well for your case study, is even at these early stages where we're thinking about a partnership, thinking about designing a study together, what is the role of having that regulatory strategy and that contact with the FDA, and how do you do that early enough to inform these conversations in a meaningful way?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think all of the, regulatory components need to align and come together. And those are really, the two sides of the same coin, right? So both our IRB and the FDA will always prioritize safety of children that will be subjects of these investigations. So here we are very much aligned. FDA will have different regulatory requirements when it comes to the effectiveness of this technology, and we are here obviously to help you collect that data that then you will present to the FDA. But everyone is primarily concerned about the safety, and we are very, very lucky to have extremely experienced IRB team who can tease out all of these nuances about medical devices and guide the investigators in the right direction to ensure that conduct is both safe and ethical and compliant from all of the perspectives. And it is in a way a luxury, because whether you approach the FDA or a lot of healthcare institutions about medical devices, especially something that is implantable, they will start from the position of fear and cautiousness. And we are cautious, but we also understand that there is a great need for developing these technologies, and we don't let fear paralyze us. It just motivates us to work harder on finding that balance and accelerating these technologies. So if you have adult device and you think that there could be a use case for pediatrics, we would love to have finalized protocol that you can bring to us. But at the same time, we can help you adjust that protocol to the children's hospital environment, and then ensure that it will translate to the data that you need, right? And if it doesn't, then we will let you know that this is not something that we can do in our environment, or maybe it just doesn't make sense because the workflow is completely different, the standard of care is completely different. But we are going to answer these questions with you. We are not just going to run with this protocol whatever way was initially designed, if we can help you improve it and ensure that it will be successful.
Yeah, no, thanks, Greg. And I think you got at something that, the FDA and they themselves will say this, that, they're in their motto, it is protect and promote. And they know that they have often swung a little too hard on the protect side at the expense of enabling innovation that might be life-changing, particularly in children, right? Significant diseases or events in a child's life might then lead to decades of a decreased quality of life or of disability. And so there has been at the FDA over the last several years a shift to sort of re-embracing both sides of that mission of protect and promote. And without speaking out of turn, I think that we have a similar position here. Yes, our role, our job, our fiduciary responsibility is to protect all of our research participants, all of our patients, all of our staff, and to find ways within a safe framework to then promote the innovation that helps push that forward. Well, thanks so much, team. I really appreciate it. We thought we'd share with you guys a case study of one specific partnership that we've been working on. So I'm going to bring up those slides for us. And then Greg is going to take us through that case study, and then we'll leave about 12 minutes at the end for questions, for conversations, both from our audience online and for the folks joining us here.
Yes, so I wanted to briefly go over a very interesting case study of a collaboration between the industry sponsor and our teams over here, just to give you a taste of what it's like to work with us and partner with us. And we chose a REMI and AI-enabled otoscope because there is a great need and innovations in a lot of areas of clinical care. ENT oftentimes still is relying on technologies that were developed 40, 50 years ago. And there is a lot of room for improvements and innovation over there. And, the REMI otoscope with AI-enabled diagnostics is just one of these examples. And so REMI developed a technology that is primarily focused on the otoscope that allows you to capture images and then transmit them to your clinician to aid with the diagnostics. They also developed a telehealth platform. So in case your clinician is far away, you can still connect them with them and receive care. But that's not where this technology is really finalized on, because the next stage of that is really introduced AI as a clinician decision support tool. So imagine the world in which you can feed AI, images of your eardrum, and it can give you clues as to whether you are affected by a disease or not, especially in the situations where, your young parents, your children do not communicate with words just yet, and they are suffering, and you just don't know whether this is something that requires urgent care or not. And here's where these technologies could really shine. So, ideally, once this is finalized, you would be able to access this technology over the app, submit images, and then receive feedback or guidance that does not replace the clinician, but it at least provides you a suggestion of whether that specialized help might be needed. So REMI reached out to us back in 2023 to partner together on securing SBIR funding for this very project AI development. And so our team designed the study. We built a budget. We partner with Office of Sponsored Programs to finalize all of the aspects of the SBIR application. And we recruited ENT surgeons to be these clinical champions and experts to serve on this grant. And that's Dr. Thompson's team, but all of the surgeons that work with Dr. Billens, Veldkamp, and Dror have been instrumental in guiding that technology development since the very, very beginning. So in September of 2023, REMI finalized with us the submission for the grant. And in February of 2024, we received a word back from the NIH that they are interested in this study. They just require a little bit more documentation and, of course, the IRB approval. So we finalized the protocol. We secured the IRB approval here at the Lurie Children's. And behold, in May of 2024, the SBIR was awarded. And so we, with REMI, received funding to facilitate that data collection and run a clinical study here at Lurie Children's. And this is where we really turn to Jamie to help us operationalize that project, because like I mentioned earlier, we are a support program, but we don't have physical location. We don't always have the team to man the study. So Jamie, would you want to give us a few words on how that worked from your perspective?
Yeah, it was fantastic. So Greg reached out and asked and said, how can we get this study started in your clinics? And it was like, okay, well, the surgeons are open to the idea. And I was like, well, we need to hire a coordinator. And so the coordinator can help with engaging with our families, engaging with our surgeons, being in the clinic, training families on how to use this device, on enrolling the subjects. The other thing that the coordinator needed to help with was any other updates to our IRB submissions, things like that. And so I was pleased to hire Dami, who's here in the room today, as our fantastic research coordinator, who has brought this project to life and really succeeded in enrolling all of our subjects, making sure all the surgeons were aware of any study updates, engaging with the surgeons to get feedback on the device. Dami's also presented on the study, presented on the results, and really took off. And I'm thrilled to support Dami and all of his work here with this project.
Thank you so much for that comment. Yeah, none of that would have been possible without all of the wonderful collaborations and established partnerships here on the inside of our team, and this jet confirms that. And so the study started in December of 2024, and we rolled it out in the ENT clinics because that felt like the most intuitive place to really start. But obviously, this is just the start of the adventure and not the end of it. So to give you an idea, AI, right? You probably are already aware that success in AI space requires massive data volumes, but also data quality. And you probably heard that phrase over and over: garbage in, garbage out. We want to make sure that we have the data needed to drive that innovation. And we also understand that driving it in pediatrics is challenging. Right, so you require all of these data sets for AI training, and they don't exist yet, right? So if you have the luxury of getting something that is already part of EMR, then that you've been or hospitals have been collecting for the past decades, then that's great, right? But it's not exactly the case over here. And so in order to facilitate all of these activities, we really started with planning. So back in that February of 2024, when we secured the IRB, we realized, oh, this is a minimal risk study. And we negotiated with our IRB a solution that would allow us for that data collection. We met all of the criteria for verbal consent and HIPAA authorization so that the patients don't have to experience, reading dozens of pages of consents for something that, at the end of the day is really just snapping an image of the eardrum and data collection. So that alleviated a lot of, workflow issues and allow us to collect more data. Of course, we hired expert clinical coordinator Dami with device research and background bioinformatics to drive that project. We chose him very consciously. And we started in December in the clinics, but then we also moved to pre-op room to improve our recruitment numbers. We then focus also on the quality of the images. With our OMI partners, we introduced an AI guide that helps navigate the user towards the right structures in the ear to boost the percent of good quality images. We roll out longitudinal 8-week-long study. We rolled out patient educational materials to help families, how to position child to take, high quality images. And then in December, we exceeded really on enrollment goals. Initially, we thought we will only get 165 patients. We got 261, and we collected 5,700 images for AI training and validation. So that's really just a tremendous success of that collaboration and planning ahead. And the patients, of course, were a part of it, right? Only about 12% patients declined to participate. 88% yeses in any clinical study is unheard of. But it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's the trust that our teams built with our community who wanted to participate in it, but also all of the barriers that we alleviated. And we ask everyone to provide their feedback. And for the few people who didn't want to participate in the study, they cited child discomfort, the perceived child discomfort, which is understandable. But for everyone else who actually got experience and worked with Dami on this project, realized that there won't be child discomfort, right? So if they didn't want to participate in one or the other part of the study, it would be mostly due to time constraints. And most importantly, nobody who we asked said the AI was an issue. So they had no concerns about AI development. And last, we also partner with Catalyst, who is a wonderful group that provides qualitative data collection analysis service, so surveys and interviews. So like with any medical technology that needs to be in patients' hands, we want to make sure that both patients and clinicians feel comfortable with it, can provide feedback. And so we had multiple surveys. We asked patients to score the technology on the usability, which they said was excellent. We asked about the Net Promoter Score, so how likely would they recommend it to others. We also got a great score there. We asked in the interviews both the skeptics who didn't want to participate necessarily and the promoters about their opinions. And they said that it would be a household staple, that it could be something as common as a thermometer. And this is the feedback coming from the patients themselves, which is invaluable. But again, none of it would have been possible if we did not band together and work with the clinicians, the researchers, the administrators, and the patients themselves on the success of this project. And it has been a tremendous, wonderful story. The project is just about to finalize, so be on the lookout for publications coming out of it, but also on the regulatory approval for this AI-based technology. Thank you so much for your interest in it, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Greg. And we picked out this as a nice case study that kind of showcased all aspects of what we're able to help and support here at Lurie Children's, from writing the grant to doing the protocol to working with surgery and OCCT to staffing the study and conducting it. The REMI team has been in conversations with the I2I team, thinking about other partnerships. I should say a disclaimer: this is not an ad. We are not REMI does not pay us to talk about this. We are funded by an NIH grant. We are a sub-awardee of a grant to REMI from NIH to conduct this study. With that, we'd love to, happy to take questions, both either online or in the room. If anyone has any questions, either for our panelists, for me, if you're interested in a specific project or you want to know more about how our systems work, happy to answer any of those. Yes, Dr. McCulley. Oh, that would be so good. Thank you.
Great information and congratulations on the otoscope. I'm working on a new device that I helped to create with a startup company. And because of various funding considerations, we're seriously considering doing our initial studies in another country. And so we have connections who are very familiar with both the clinical environment. We've got collaborators who are very interested. But I'm just wondering if you have any comments about, first, how Lurie can help with this, or CTIP can help with this or not. And also the whole issue of how data that are carefully collected in another country can or can't be used for to further an FDA application. I apologize, this is so specific to me, but it's really, I want to get this done because it could literally save a lot of lives.
Yeah, no, specific questions are super helpful because then people can map that to their own. So no problem. So there's a couple of things in there. Yes, there is both in pharma and MedTech, but maybe more in MedTech. There's been a push to move more studies abroad because of the rising cost of conducting clinical trials in the United States. There's a new HHS initiative called Operation Trailblazer, which is a coordinated effort between NSF, FDA, and NIH to try to retain more clinical research in the United States. TBD, this is like 2 months old. But there's a couple of things that are really important when you think about this. One is the FDA does not take kindly to submissions with what they will call foreign data without having talked to them first. So the first thing you want to do before you ever plan an international study is to have a if it's a drug, you want to have a Type C meeting. If it's a device, either like a traditional a Type B pre-sub meeting, and we can talk about what those things are. But yes, you want to engage with the FDA first and say, hey, here's our study plan, and here's where we're planning to conduct it, and why we think that the data collected from that population is representative of the population of the United States. The FDA has allowed data collected in other countries as part of their submission process, but only with prior approval. So you definitely want to engage the FDA first. And certainly that's something that CTIB can support. And to the extent that this might be part of a larger arc of development and partnership, I think there's a role for everybody here, because maybe there's also different kinds of data, right? So devices don't do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 like we do in drug trials. Typically there's pivotal studies and feasibility studies, sometimes only one of those. So the FDA is open to things like doing one of those outside the US and then one of them in the US. So I think there is a strategy to be built around what happens here and what happens outside the US. And I think everybody here would be happy to talk a little bit more about that. And it doesn't, if anyone wants to add anything else.
I think that's about right. You very much cover it. Always negotiation with the FDA, but the FDA could allow, just about 50% of the data being provided from abroad, so long you have another 50% from the representative populations over here. So, cannot speak for the FDA. It's always on a case-by-case basis, but we've seen these patterns and these kind of decisions being made and the kind of data being included.